Hello, everyone. I don't deserve that reception, but thank you anyway. I only have 10 minutes to speak. It's not possible to do a well-based narrative, so I chosen to do just some statements that may or not be controversial, and then if you want to discuss them, I'm pleased to do it. Well, first of all, thank you to APES and HRI for giving me the opportunity to be here with you today, and I'm very pleased to share this table with you. My name is Marta Pinto, I'm a psychologist, I'm Portuguese, and that's why I'll try to speak about the Portuguese model from the inside. Besides being a researcher and a professor at the University of Porto, I'm also an experienced outreach worker in the field of drugs, in the most dramatic open scenes of this city, my home city, Porto. Well, Portugal pre and post-reform, this is my point of view. As you can see, the country is not the same since the reform was made. Regarding drug conventional indicators, like infectious diseases rates, substance use over time, problematic drug use, drug-induced deaths, imprisonment rates, search for treatments for substance use disorders, and so on. So it's usual to say that the model is a success because of that. But is it the Portuguese drug policy model a decriminalization one? Or just that? Sorry, I just want to say something about that. The model has been presented as being the result of a legislative change and of a consequence. The success of the model has also been presented as a consequence of dissuasion. But the model is much more than that, and that's what I want to underline. The legislative change is just one of the things, important of course, but just one of the things. And I would highlight two aspects. An investment made on harm reduction measures since the reform was implemented, and also from my point of view, a highly complex and territorial strategy that tries to address in an integrative and integral way all the needs of people who use psychoactive substances, their families, and their communities. And I think that those two elements are absolutely crucial for the success achieved nowadays. There are, however, as always, some weaknesses. And I would point, I'm sure that Rui Coimbra, that will be arriving soon, will talk about this. We have some problems with the amounts previewed in the law for personal use. We have a void in the law that has been allowing cases of criminalization of drug use. We have a problem of under-budgeting and political disinvestment in the drug phenomenon. Drug consumption rooms are yet to be very developed, and coverage is a problem. We still don't have no take-home naloxone programs, no drug checking regulation, nor enough coverage. And we still have to develop specific interventions for specific populations like women, like ethnic minorities, and so on. But I would like to address some more structural problems in my point of view. Is the Portuguese model, drug policy model, adequate? In my point of view, when we face more conservative and repressive alternatives under the prohibitionist paradigm, this model is one of the best possible options that we may adopt. In fact, to underline this, the model has been appropriated by conservative international bodies to support the discourse in favor of prohibitionism. Look at Portugal. Portugal is the living proof that prohibitionism works. But should this be the way to build our future? This is one of my main questions. And I'm a social constructionist, so I really believe that instead of asking who uses drugs, why, and how, we should be asking who defines the consumption of some particular substances as a problem, why, and how. And those are the questions that worry me most. And I think that the indicators that we are using to evaluate drug policy tells us something about this. The conventional indicators are the ones that I pointed out. Alex Stevens knows that very well, which are the indicators used. And I'm asking, why are these the indicators being used? And my answer is because they are the ones relevant to social control and to public health. I'm not speaking about the Portuguese drug policy model now. I'm talking about the way we see things globally in the world. And Michel Foucault shows us how health control is a major vehicle to legitimize and to perform social control over individuals and populations that are felt as a menace by rule makers. So in brief, those indicators are social management tools offering the individual the power to choose if he wants or not to use drugs, but at the same time neutralizing his or her effect in the community and putting him or her in silence. What about indicators such as socioeconomic reinsertion, citizenship, symbolic and social status, stigma, self-perceived well-being, sense of belonging, housing situation, inequality in access to general health system? I assure you that we would find a very dark side of drug policies under prohibitionism, even in the most comprehensive frameworks. I hope I'm being clear, because speaking in English, it's not the best thing for me. I'm almost finishing. I don't know if I have time. So, in my point of view, the main weakness, and it is a structural one that has to do with principles, is that the Portuguese model is health-centered, and it seems a good thing, but it may not be a good thing, because it could be human rights-centered. For example, Argentina in 2009, the Supreme Court in Argentina ruled that criminalizing possession for personal use is simply unconstitutional, and several constitutional and Supreme Courts in the world, over the world, consider that criminalizing drug possession or drug use is a violation of the fundamental right to self-determination, therefore to human dignity. Okay? So this means that despite of all these gains, and I'm willing to fight for the Portuguese model under prohibitionism in any circumstances, but despite of all these gains, the Portuguese model is still built upon the drug fallacy. And from what is the drug fallacy to me is that prohibitionism has nothing to do with pharmacological, rational, or scientific reasons, nor with the true risks and harms of illicit substances when compared to legal drugs. On the contrary, prohibitionism is built upon prejudice, stigma, moral standards against minority groups, or upon geostrategic interests. And in my point of view, a truly honest and rational approach must get over this fallacy once and for all. So decriminalization as well as harm reduction, because decriminalization is a harm reduction measure, are fundamentally addressing the risks of the harms of wrong drug policies and of social intolerance to diversity and not to drug use itself. And those are the problems that we must address. So finally, just to finish, for those who want drug policy to go even further to a regulatory framework, I think that Portugal is not the the place to look at, because we made major improvements. And the truth is that reform in Portugal took place because we were in a truly dramatic situation. So I really think that, for example, Canada and other countries that are in major suffering situations are the ones that will take further steps in reforming drug policy. Portugal, I believe, will be improving its model in those type of things that I was talking about. Take-home naloxone programs, specific answers to women and so on. But of course that we are now in a very comfortable situation regarding the past that we have had. So the motivation to change, to go further is lower. So thank you for listening to me.